looks from the outside in, and it says the city is a whole. All of it together needs to be thought about. The heritage resources and the way of life and the daily economic activities and the environment and society all need to be brought together clearly in thinking about the city in a comprehensive way and integrating the perspective of the city and the broader territory. So this is holistic, and the historic urban landscape is defined in the Hull recommendation as the urban area understood as a result of a historic layering of cultural and natural values and attributes extending beyond the notion of the historic center or ensemble to include the broader urban context and setting, city and territory together. So when we started a few days ago, we put this up so that we would be clear that in the 21st century, urban problems are universal. Edirne is actually in a very positive position. There are many cities globally that are in much more serious trouble. Edirne can really come forward and thrive. It's not addressing some of the most critical and difficult problems that many cities are facing. However, the same pressures are here. If growth is not managed, uncontrolled growth can destroy some of the assets you already have. The projection of 75% of the world population in cities by 2013 means that Edirne and its region will continue to grow. And one of the things we touch on in our recommendations is creating a growth boundary and making a green surround so that the city can be dense and strong while the countryside remains nearby. There are a series of global trends. We all know that resilience and climate change, disasters and conflicts are increasingly affecting everyone's daily lives and the life of regions and cities. In addition, culture and nature need to be better integrated globally. We're looking at sustainability, enhancing and including the ideas of culture, health, food, and agriculture being strong, and Edirne in this case has a real positive aspect in that its agricultural economy and productivity is very good. One of the abilities of that green belt is to help retain agriculture near in to the city. This simple diagram gives us a sense of the notion of culture and sustainability. Sustainability, defined by the Brundtland Commission in 1987 and continued to be reinforced in all international dialogues, is the relationship of environment, economy, and society. None of these three stand alone, and they all operate within a culture. Irina Boykova, the Secretary General of the Director General of UNESCO, giving a speech in June of 2013, said the problem with the prior Millennium Plan was that while we focused on sustainability, we left behind culture. So globally, what needs to happen is the culture integration with sustainability for environment, economy, and society permeated with the cultural uniqueness of place. The Hull recommendation provides 4 tool groups: civic engagement, knowledge and planning, regulatory systems, including laws and practices, and financial tools. Where does the money come from? How does the private, public, and civic sector work together? There are a series of tools, and I won't go through these. We have a lot of material to present to you. And our point here is that engaging the public is a successful process that leads to agreement on the way forward, that leads to cooperation. For knowledge and planning, documenting tangible and intangible heritage and working toward comprehensive vision of a place is what will bring us to the future in a way that is fully integrated. Regulatory systems can be traditional management. It looks from our observations that the individual neighborhoods may have strong identity and some internal management, and we may have agricultural practices that have been developed and held over many decades and centuries, and these traditions are part of regulating land use and regulating community. In addition, the legal structures, the zoning, all helps us toward the future. What we do understand from our brief work is that the urban viewscape is not well controlled here in Edirne, and we know that controlling views, particularly entering the city from the edges and coming in to the core areas, is an important task for the future. The agricultural heritage of the area is linked to your communities, and those systems are important to preserve and present in a way that farmers can have a good life and a new generation wishes to take up farming. And financial tools are varied and can come from a series of sources. One thing that this community could use is a revolving loan fund so that historic structures can be preserved with additional incentives. The legal tools you have in place right now for historic structures are not preserving them. They are being lost. So the important piece is to bring forward incentives. And one of those incentives may be a revolving fund that is put together by public officials and civic philanthropic groups in order to reinforce the retention of private places, private properties that have historic value. This kind of fund is in practice in many places, and we can offer examples. In working with the World Bank recently on Indian heritage cities, we looked at all the elements of an inclusive plan for a sustainable city and region. And these dozen elements give you a sense of the complexity of what we're trying to present to you. The days of old simple plans that are highlighted by a grand building or special architecture are over. What we need now for our cities is to understand that every step we take builds together toward an inclusive, vital city for the future. So when we upgrade a sewer waste system or we foster economic vitality, we need to know how it links together with everything else. What we have found in Edirne is that many good things have happened. They have happened in isolation. They are not knitted together. They don't make a whole cloth. So what we need to do is think about all the factors, and each piece of action needs to build on other pieces of action. We envisioned this for the work in India as a cyclic process where you might enter this diagram at step 2 or step 4, looking at how to develop inclusive revitalization process, or looking at how to engage communities, finish a project, understand how it performs. Go forward again with your team of heritage officials at many levels and people in communities, and work on the next engagement and the next process. What we have failed in the past is when we think of this process as linear. If we say there's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and we're done, we're missing the fact that we're creating pieces that interlock and work together. This is our team that worked on the Hull approach, and we'd like to offer a couple of applications for Edirne to the UNESCO Hull thinking process. This is by our colleague, Professor Michael Turner, who was with us for several days. He saw a very simple diagram here of prehistory, Roman history, the Byzantine and Ottoman periods, the assets that they created, how over time there was a layering of assets, and much of it had to do with the rivers, the water, and the confluence that is created here in Edirne. He saw this as a relationship of place and time, with 53 mosques, the World Heritage Site, the architecture of Sinan, and a number of aspects that we need to think about. The floodplain as a sponge, so the flooding is alleviated, and a series of aspects toward integrating the universities and the students more effectively, toward considering creative cities and the potential for a media hub, and with that, the reinforcement of the good things that are already here and the support for communities and neighborhoods so that they thrive. We did this diagram looking at Edirne in 7 locations, A and B, the Selamia Mosque and the Old City. These are well recognized, and much of what has been carried out in the past for heritage has focused on A and B. What we saw was that there were several important neighborhoods, and I will ask apologies on messing up the names and hope that the translators will translate the names appropriately. But the Mens Salahar neighborhood, which is the Roma area, the Kavmusbi neighborhood, each of these is numbered on the map, the Talatapasa neighborhood, and the easy one for me, the Station neighborhood. Now, interestingly, it looks to us like areas 1, 2, and 3 are good neighborhoods that are not working together and working with the city administration and with the regional administration to make their communities better. Hull suggests and recommends that people remain in their neighborhoods, that we don't use the old tool of urban renewal where we take people away, remove their homes, rebuild the city. Instead, we make the area of the city where these people live now stronger and better, and we don't do a removal process where we create more hard feelings and lack of ability to work together. So what we wish here is that each of these 3 neighborhoods can be supplemental and have strong attention given to them in this context of the whole city coming up and being stronger. In addition, we added the Bezazin 2 Mosque and Medical Complex at the edge across the river as a place where there could be growth and there could be a part of an economic component that if medical technology and herbal technologies were added to the traditions, there is another way for Edirne to go forward. The other piece of this is to move out beyond the city, the rivers, and the agricultural land, look at the green belt, and this is